What makes Contour Next diabetes test strips next level? A few reasons. They're the #1 over-the-counter brand. Next, they give you highly accurate results in seconds.
Bullseye.
Next, they're more affordable than many insurance copays. Next, they're doctor recommended.
All right, thanks, Doc.
And next, they work with all Contour Next meters. Next level diabetes testing, that's over-the-counter Contour Next test strips.
Woohoo!
Shop in-store or online to learn more about our limited time promotion.
Planning holiday get-togethers means making tough, last-minute decisions. But preparing the perfect meal shouldn't be one of them. So let the Fresh from Florida Club help. Members can browse hundreds of recipes, from sweet corn and sausage stuffing to Florida spiny lobster bisque, each with local, in-season ingredients to create and save holiday menus ahead of time. Visit freshfromflorida.com and join the free Fresh from Florida Club. It could be the easiest decision you'll make all year.
There's a lot of good and bad with long-term care, but one thing is certain. We must have more and better options. That's the topic we're discussing today with Susie Carter-Singer, a filmmaker and podcaster. And please share this episode with other caregivers, because the more advocates we can get on this topic, the faster we can make changes. Welcome to Fading Memories, the podcast for caregivers of loved ones with dementia. I'm your host, Jennifer Fink. My mom had Alzheimer's for 20 years, and when I went looking for answers, I had to start a podcast to find them. Join me as we navigate the challenges of dementia caregiving together. This podcast is your beacon of support and empowerment. Let's share our experiences, find solace, and discover the strength within us. Get ready to embark on a transformative caregiving journey with Fading Memories. If you're looking for additional advice, be sure to sign up for our weekly email newsletter. It's brief, gives you great advice. You can read it in less than 5 minutes, and you know where to find the link. It's in the website, on the show notes. We're working on subscriber-only information and specials, so you're not going to want to miss out. When I learned that despite eating as healthy as possible, we can still have undernourished brains, I was frustrated. Learning about neuroreserves, Relevate, and how it's formulated to fix this problem convinced me to give them a try. Now I know many of you are skeptical, as was I. However, I know it's working because of one simple change. My sweet tooth is gone. I didn't expect that, and it's not something other users have commented on, but here's some truth. My brain always wanted something sweet. Now, fruit usually did the trick, but not always. One bad night's sleep would fire up my sugar cravings so much they were almost impossible to ignore. You ever have your brain screaming for a donut? Well, for me, those days are gone. I believe in my results so much that I'm passing on my 15% discount to you. Try it for 2 or 3 months and see if you have a miraculous sweet tooth cure, or maybe just better focus and clarity. It's definitely worth a try. Now, on with our show. Welcome back, everybody. I have a fantastic guest for you today. My Southern California podcast sister, Susie Carter-Singer, is here today. She's going to tell us the story about her mom and the treatment her mom had in long-term care and how that led her to creating the movie No Country for Old People, which we need to help support her to get it finished. So thanks for joining me, Susie.
My pleasure. I'm just going to say, because I know I do that all the time, it's Susie Singer Carter.
Oh, well, my audience knows that your name could be Jane Smith, and I would figure out a way to butcher it. I am a very visual person.
Yes.
You probably don't know because this is not a visual medium per se, but I was a portrait photographer for almost 30 years. And names just have always been terrible for me.
That's okay. It's okay. That's why, it takes a village. And so, right, everybody has their thing.
Yep.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. We finally got to do this. I think you were a guest on my show, last year or the year before? I'm trying to remember.
Early 22, so like 18 months ago.
Wow.
I know, time flies.
So that was right in the throes of my mom's journey, of our journey together last year. So yeah, that's when it all started. Do you want me to just jump in and just
go ahead.
Background? Yeah. So, the documentary that we're working on right now, No Country for Old People, really started out of my discovery of this broken system, our nursing home system, really our healthcare system in general, is broken, but specifically the nursing home long-term care part of the healthcare system is just dilapidated, and it has been for 50 years, close to 50 years. I mean, I just finished reading a book called Tender Loving Greed, which is quoted all the time in articles now, like as of last week. So it was written in 1974. We're talking 49 years ago. And if I tell you that the same stories that this magnificent, investigative writer wrote about are exactly what is happening today. And that is heartbreaking because things haven't changed. And even with, the 1987, the whole mandates, the new mandates that they put out, which hasn't been since 1987. And everybody celebrated that. It still hasn't changed. And the same as, the CMS put out an announcement last week about minimum staffing requirements. And everybody was very excited about that. Except if you look closer, again, we are up against the same problems. Who's going to enforce it? Who's overseeing it? And who is incentivized to do that? No one.
And I keep saying that I don't understand why this country thinks it's okay to profit off of somebody being sick or needing care. It's like, I get people don't want the government involved in our healthcare. That is like an entire other show, not just our shows. But it's so frustrating.
But they are. That's the thing. They are 100% involved, because when you get to anybody that's over 65 who's on Medicare, and anybody who's getting use out of Medicaid, you are working with the government, and that's the way it is. So government, we are socialized in that respect. We are socialized. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but that's what it is. And And so the government is there, and the government is what is the problem, because CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, are responsible for allocating the funds that the federal government has mandated that we pay for out of our taxes, that you pay your whole life for into that, right?
Yep.
And that money is allocated by CMS, and then CMS just gets the bills or doles it out, just checks off the boxes. There's no oversight. There's no transparency. It's really at its core, the whole business model is organized crime, but it's legal.
I love that analogy. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
It's legalized because there's no rules put in place. There are no rules. There's no transparency. And it's the most lucrative business to be involved in.
Yeah, I believe that. Do you think that the disconnect happens because our governmental leaders aren't ever going to have to deal with that kind of care? They've got the money, and they have like a whole different healthcare system for them, sort of.
Well, maybe part of that. I mean, yes, anybody who's in the rarefied 1% in this country will fare okay, right? Because they'll be able to pay if you need care, private care in your home. You'd be able to afford 4 or 5 caregivers, because sometimes that's what it takes.
Mm-hmm. We had 24/7 caregivers for my parents when my dad was on hospice. So this was the beginning of 2017, and it was over $700 a day.
Yes.
And we had, what did we have? 3 times 8 is 24, I believe. Like I said, math's also not my thing. But yeah, and it was very stressful because I couldn't monitor or manage people that were there at 3:00 in the morning. Like, I'm solar charged. When the sun goes down, I go down. It's like, I'm not awake I'm usually awake at 3 a.m. because I got to go to the bathroom, but then I go back to sleep. I'm not driving 20 miles to my parents' house, make sure the caregiver isn't doing something they shouldn't be doing, or they're doing what they need to do. Some of them were really great and didn't get paid enough, and some of them were adequate, and a couple of them we had to tell the company not to send them back. It was
Right.
just, and here my dad is dying, and we're trying to deal with my mom who has advanced Alzheimer's, and like the last thing I needed to deal with was caregivers.
Well, and that's that. Let me tell you, that is the norm.
Mm-hmm.
That's the normal situation. And even with you having hospice in your home, and when I talk about the 1%, I'm talking about private care, people that are not paying $700 a day. I'm talking about, $2,000 to $3,000 to $5,000 a day care. Right. So if you can afford that, God bless you.
Yeah.
Most people can't. And so, you asked why is this happening? Well, because the nursing home industry has a very strong lobby, and their lobby is actually stronger than the pharmaceutical lobby. And
that's scary.
It's very scary. And so nobody is incentivized in our government to make changes. So that's why, your typical advocacy doesn't work. All of this incredible energy that's gone towards, making policy changes, speaking at, Congress, going to rallies, all of these kinds of, typical kinds of advocacy that normally works is really an echo chamber, and nobody is paying attention that needs to pay attention, or it becomes lip service, or it becomes, performative policy making.
Yeah, we don't need any of that.
No, but that's what it is. So, and then there's the big A word, which is ageism. And so we, the public, are culpable because we're not looking. And it's true. I'm guilty too. And I have a mom that I adored and wanted the best for her. I didn't realize how ageist we are and how ableist we are. And, and on and on and on, all the isms, right? It's true. And that really affects how this industry is able to get away with what they're getting away with. So in essence, the fox is put in charge of the hen house.
I believe it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your mom? I know she was a singer.
Yeah. Yes, she was. So my mom was a delightful human being. She was fun and energetic and a force. And she started singing opera at 9. She was a protege. She was singing jazz at 16. She got signed to Capitol Records at 19. She decided she didn't want to go on the road because everybody at the time, at least in the bands that she, would be traveling with, there was a lot of heroin and a lot of drug use. And my mom, that was not her gig. And she ended up marrying my dad. But, and then my dad was a big force in the music industry. So they became a good team. And, my mom had Alzheimer's almost as long as your mom, almost 17 years. And it was a journey. It's a journey, as you know. It's a journey,
very long journey,
a very long exit. For me, it was bittersweet because I just loved her so much. We just had such a great relationship. And I thought, this gave me the ramp to figure out how I was going to deal with her exiting this world. And so for a long time, like when she was first diagnosed, like all of us, I was like, we're fixing this. We'll be the first, but we're getting this, Mom. Don't worry about it. We got this. Alzheimer's getting its ass kicked tomorrow, right? And then you realize, after about a year or so, you're like, this is exhausting and it isn't working. It's like nothing is working. It's not, I can't, I'm too weak. I can't do it. This beast is too strong. So what can I do? I decided, I can't pull my mom into my world. I'm going to live in her world when I'm with her and find the best way to make it happy for all of us and to enjoy whatever cognitive level she was at, like I did with my daughters as they were growing up. Like, whatever level they were at. It was as, infants, toddlers, children, teenagers, get into their mindset and be where they're at. And so, be the most empathetic you can be. And like, why do you need those Converse shoes? Oh, because everybody else has them. Well, that makes sense if I think about it. When I'm 13, going to school and you're the only one that doesn't have it, it makes a difference, and it sounds stupid as an adult. You're like, you don't need them. They're not that important. But then you have to get into their mindset. Where are they at in their development? Where it makes so much sense to like not stand out.
Yeah.
You're going through so many other things. Why not mitigate as much stress as you can? And choose your battles. So that's what I did with Mom, was like, I decided, let me find out where she's at in every stage and mitigate the stress and concentrate on the joy that I could find with her. And there was so much because, for us, my mom's cognitive reserve, like everybody has cognitive reserve. And I'm sure your audience has heard of that, right? In terms of Alzheimer's, whether if you were an accountant, and, numbers are going to be your cognitive reserve. You're going to, till the wee ends of whatever's left of your brain cells, you're going to be like, oh yeah, that's 75. You're going to know what it is. My mom, give her a song, she wouldn't know, a hammer from a nail. Give her a song and she remembers the words better than me. So we used music. That was our tool. Food, a lot of lovin's. My mom was very responsive to love because she was very, very demonstrative and affectionate and a huge flirt and had game, way more game than I've ever had, even in a wheelchair and with advanced Alzheimer's. So, there was that too. And so we just, and I learned how to open up the window with her and get in. And I loved every bit of it. Like I loved every bit of raising my daughters. And like, we become our mother's mother.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. See, my mom liked talk TV and talk radio. And so trying to do all the music stuff, because everybody always said, oh, you could connect with them with music. It did not work with my mom. I should have just played her friggin' podcasts. But I was always afraid to play mine. And I didn't think she would connect with others. And way too much in my own head. So I know your mom. What was that?
I bet she would have loved your podcast, right?
Probably. And it's not like
she loved a talk show, but she would have been like, my daughter's doing a talk show. She would have loved it.
Possibly. She thought I was her best friend. So that also made things weird. But so I know your mom was in a 5-star private pay nursing home.
Not private paid.
Oh, not private paid.
It could be private paid. But when you get to a certain point, like, as you know, very long disease, most people that have the long-term Alzheimer's will run out of, I'm so sorry, will run out of, I should know better, should run out of money. They do. I'll say that again. Most people that have long-term Alzheimer's will deplete their savings at some point. So this particular facility at some point does take Medicaid and Medicare. So like most people, if you live a certain age, that's what you're looking at in long-term care. So that's where she was at. Now, I mean, it's to say that facilities aren't making enough money from Medicare and Medicaid is a complete misnomer. That's a lie. They're making plenty of money. They're making enough money to take care of their residents and also to pay their staff, which they don't do. And they underpay and understaff, and that's how they make buco's money.
Yep. My mom was in a private pay memory community, and most of the staff, so I was really close to about 4 or 5 of the caregivers, the ones that were on shift when I was there. 2 of them worked at Starbucks for 8 hours before going to the memory care and working for 8 hours. I don't know how you dealt with people for 8 hours with cognitive problems. Yeah. But after dealing with the ding-dongs at Starbucks, no, thank you. And then the one gal that was really in charge of my mom a lot, she just did caregiving and she had zero money because after my mom passed away, well, we moved before my mom passed away. And she had commented on, oh, she would have loved it if I could have like given her some of this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what you want. I was like, it was kind of a really awkward statement because I would have totally given her anything that she could have used, but I didn't know that she had that kind of need. So yeah, they were not paid enough. And I don't think the executive director was either, because he, dressed basic and drove an older Honda Accord. So if he was getting paid some big bucks, he certainly wasn't wearing it or driving it. So I'm pretty certain he wasn't making the kind of money he needed to deal with all the nonsense he had to deal with. So somebody is making the money somewhere. It was a good community. Mom had great care. My listeners know that they said my mom could keep her dog, and I did not do any legal searches or Google searches or any kind of logical investigations. I just basically flung the money at them. Just like, okay, fine, she can keep that damn dog. Here you go. Here's a deposit. So I was really lucky it worked out so well, but it didn't work out the same for your mom.
Well, yeah. And everyone's experience is different. And let me preface this by saying, are there good places? Yes, there's good places. Are there great frontline providers, CNAs in particular? They're the ones that do the hands-on every day. Of course. But those really good facilities are few and far between, and they don't mitigate the other ones. They don't take away the bad ones, which there are way more. Mm-hmm. That is the norm. That is the average. And it's not me just spouting because, my mom's situation. I've been in the trenches in this, doing my research and my reconnaissance, and my partner, Rick Montcastle, the honorable former U.S. attorney, assistant attorney general, who was, investigated and prosecuted Purdue Pharma, Abbott Labs, and then also investigated and prosecuted federally nursing homes for the past 25 years. And the end result was, if they got fined, it's cost of doing business and nothing changes. And that's why he's working with me on this project, because he wants to see it change. It's been this way too long. And people are suffering. It's not just, oh my gosh, they need a better pillow, or, they're not getting enough attention, or whatever the hell it is. I mean, people are suffering. They are being warehoused. Mm-hmm. Warehoused. And given, they're either not given enough treatment because Medicare doesn't cover it, or Medi-Cal or Medicaid, or they're given things they don't need because they can bill that, which is just as bad. And so it is egregious, it is torturous, and it has to stop. It has to stop, because it's not my mom's story, it's everybody's story. What's your story, my story? And, and it's only going to get worse because population is more and the infrastructure is not there.
That's for sure. Especially after COVID. It's like I was surprised how many, so my mom passed away March 31st, 2020. They asked me to come back and clean out her room in May. So like 2 months later. And then I went back in October, and just the changes in that 6-ish, 8-ish months was interesting. I was surprised at the ones that were still there and happy. I mean, I don't know. I was happy they were still there. I don't know if that was good or bad, but it felt different. It was, it was, I don't know. It just, maybe because I hadn't been there for so long, but it felt very strange. And I know that, we had a caregiver shortage before the pandemic. Now it's substantially worse. It's insane.
It's insane. Well, COVID did us a service in that it pulled the curtain back on what was happening. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't, unless you have your head in the sand, which a lot of us do. And I don't mean that derogatorily, but we're busy with our lives. If you're in the middle of your life, and nursing homes are not a sexy subject,
No.
Right. But the truth is that it is not just the nursing home industry. It's also our hospitals and our healthcare industry in general. There's big business, big corporations are taking over every part mm-hmm. of the healthcare system. And so you're going to see a lot of, geriatricians are a rarity now.
Now we're going to take a quick break for an ad. These ads help me continue to bring the show to you for free. When I learned that despite eating as healthy as possible, we can still have undernourished brains, I was frustrated. I also live in a farming community, so I'm aware that our food isn't grown as well as we need. Learning about neuroreserves, Relevate, and how it's formulated to fix this problem convinced me to give them a try. Now I know many of you are skeptical, as was I. However, I know it's working because of one simple change. My sweet tooth is gone. I didn't expect that, and it's not something other users have commented on, but here's some truth. My brain always wanted something sweet. Now, fruit usually did the trick, but not always. One bad night's sleep would fire up my sugar cravings so much they were almost impossible to ignore. You ever have your brain screaming for a donut? Well, for me, those days are gone. It's been about 6 months since I started taking the supplement, and I have no regrets. I believe in my results so much that I'm passing on my 15% discount to you. Try it for 2 or 3 months and see if you have a miraculous sweet tooth cure, or maybe just better focus and clarity. It's definitely worth a try. Now back to our conversation. I talked to one, she actually is like quasi-related to a friend of the family. It's kind of like really strange. Show up at a birthday party. I'm like, oh, hey, your episode's coming out since such a time. It was very strange. But yeah, she told me, so this was like, say, a year and a half ago, maybe, that there was 3,500 geriatricians in the United States, and they're the lowest paid specialty, which makes no sense. Like, it's not easy taking care of an older adult, especially if they've got a cognitive disease, because not only are you taking care of this, aging adult, but you also have to deal with their family. It's not like they can just walk themselves into the doctor and say, hey, I'm experiencing da-da-da. You basically have at least 2 patients to deal with.
Exactly. Exactly. And the amount of geriatricians has gone incredibly, it's so rare. And like you said, they're the lowest paid. So there aren't a lot of people, able to go into that direction. So what does that do for us? So that what it does is that nobody really understands this focus of health, and people are guessing at best. And that's why people are, getting drugs that they shouldn't be getting, black box drugs that because people don't understand. That's why when you take somebody who is a senior citizen into an emergency ER situation, what is normal for them, what is their base, would not be our base. And
Right.
And they're being, it's one size fits all, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you think they'd learn in medical school that everybody's different.
Right.
That's like day one, right?
Right. And then there's ageism. Again, I'm going to keep going back to ageism because, so many of the ER doctors and nurses and hospital providers that I've talked to, it's like they admitted, they said, we're guilty of it. We say, well, they're 89. They'll wait. And it's so unfair because, I kept saying when I was caring for my mom last year during this whole tragedy that was happening, I said, I had the hospice doctor tell me, your mom's 89. And I was like, you know what? When you're 89, tell me how you feel. Right now, my mom's enjoying her life, or she was. Who are you? Nobody has the right to tell anybody whether they should live or die. That's your human right.
Well, they don't know, are you going to live to 90 or are you going to be like my paternal grandmother and live to 103? I mean, let's see, if I can do the math, that's 11
at 13
and 3.
years.
Yeah, 13 years. That's a pretty sizable chunk of time.
That's a terrific chunk of time. And, and it's valuable. It's valuable to the family. It's valuable to the person, to the resident, to the patient. And it just, it doesn't, that is the ageism, that is the judgment, that we place upon people that are older, because we're all terminal.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, how are we putting a worth on, how are we judging that worth let's say you get to 50. Are you less worthy than someone at 40, 60? Are you less, is that how we're looking at life? Because I frankly feel like, and I've always felt this way, that the older we get, God willing, that we've aggregated so much more experience and knowledge that we have to share. It's invaluable. And I don't know about you, but I really appreciate the experience and the intelligence that I have now than I
Yeah.
did. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of the transformations that I've been able to make, but that takes time.
That's true. And you don't want to be acting like a 30-year-old when you're 60, because that just seems kind of cringy.
Well, I don't even think about that. To be honest with you, Jennifer, like I don't even like to frame it like that. Like I feel like I'll always be 30 in my head. And I know I do. And it's not like I'm trying to be that. It's it's my vitality. It's who I am. Okay. And I don't feel like I need to adjust that to some created box. Like, oh, you can't, like, I dance hip hop, and as you know, and I'm twice as old as some people, and some people are older than me, right? And who are professional dancers. And I don't think we should box ourselves into, some social construct that doesn't really make sense, because I am sure that everybody listening knows somebody at 20 who was acting like 60. And someone at 6, right? And that used to annoy me. Like, I remember when I first got out of college, and my best friends were like, "Oh, we're old now," and like, no. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even want to think about it. Like, I don't even think that way. Like, I had friends who were 60 in my 20s who were just as cool as any 20-year-old friend I had. Right. And like, one of my best friends is in her late 70s, and I adore her. And she's more vital than some of my friends in their 50s, And so I don't look at it that way. I look at it like, how do you feel? How do you present? I've, and more power to you. Listen, if I was, it all depends. I don't know. How do I say this? Like, without sounding goofy, I mean, I guess I dress like a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're going to identify it, I'm not going to walk around with, midriffs unless my abs are looking really good that day. but who cares?
True.
Who cares? Do you feel good? Do you feel good? Do you look good? Like, I feel like if you feel good about yourself and you are working it, go work it, girl. Work whatever you want to work.
I think we're at the start of a cultural change to where people are like, this country's aging, and old people or older people have wisdom. And I mean, I think some older people that were cool in their 20s are like way more cool in their 60s and 70s, because it's like it's had time to like mature, or I'm thinking like aged wine, which is funny because I don't even drink, but it's like certain things are just better with age, like even 100%. Leftovers. So what is it that you've discovered with your movie that you think can help people? Like, I don't know if we can avoid some of these problems, but how do we help shift this baloney into something better? Because, like, if I'm going to live for another 46 years, I would prefer that, the healthcare is better, and, assisted living communities, memory care communities are better, because I plan on living in assisted living at 85, because I'm not dealing with cleaning the house and that crap when I'm 85.
Right. Well, I mean, listen, I think that the structure of elder care and assisted living and those kinds of facilities it's not healthy. And so it needs to be rethought about. It needs to be rethought, because I get it. You don't want to be doing all that stuff. Let's say that's your goal. So, but you want to live somewhere where you're thriving, not surviving. Right? You want to thrive. You want to be in a community. Community is everything. And community, and that takes a different kind of structure. So right now it's about keeping people alive. Like I said, surviving. That's not living. That's not quality of life. We need situations that keep us engaged, right?
Mhm.
With purpose. And those are the things that bring quality to life. So, what's the point of living an extended amount of years if they're shitty?
Yeah. Well,
That
where the assisted living community that Mom's Memory Care was attached to was pretty vibrant. I mean, okay, so 85, that's like a little less than 20 years. I might change my mind in 20 years. Who knows? Actually, no, it is about 20 years. Um, See, I told you I can do math.
There you go. Good girl.
No, it's 30 years. Thank you. I'm thinking, geez, that sounds awfully close. It would be 29 years. I can do math when I need to. There was a gal there who was a volunteer. She was like the kind of the helper. She's like a community advocate. So she kind of helped put the activities together. My mom was giving me a real fuss one day, wouldn't talk to me. And it got ugly. And she walked my mom out to the car because I would pick my mom up at memory care, drive around the building, and we'd go to lunch in the assisted living dining room because it was very nice. And it had, nice portion controlled meals. And then I would take her back around. So it was like an extended excursion to her, and it was easier for me. But this one day, she was just having a really terrible day, and she was really taking it out on me. And this older woman dealt with my mother and to some extent me, but I just went and got in the car. I was just like, I'm just going to let her handle this. So there was a lot more stuff going on. There was a middle school across the street. They would come over and engage with the older adults, which I thought was fantastic. So
That is great.
obviously my perspective on assisted living is skewed very positively because this particular community was pretty good.
That's awesome. And maybe that's a good model then, whatever goes on there. And there's all kinds of models that we're going to, include in this documentary. It's not all doom and gloom. I mean, basically it's, I'm going to describe what happens using my mom's story. And then how does it happen? Why does it happen? And then how do we fix it? Right. And the shift that you mentioned a couple minutes ago is really it has to be a collective shift and a collective conscious shift in our public. The public really needs to see this. So this film is really about educating everybody as to what's really going on, because if you knew, it's almost like our food industry. If you knew. And I'm not a staunch vegan, but if it's hard to look at, I get it. But if we don't, we're culpable.
Mm-hmm.
We don't look at it when it's like I say, I'm doing this film because I saw things I can't unsee. So if you know, then you can do better. So I want people to know, and then we can do better, because we can do better, but we can't if we don't do anything about it. But we need to know, and that's the purpose of the film, is to let people know what is really happening, and not, if this isn't like a sensational. I'm not trying to be sensationalistic or try to, that's not me. I live in happy zone. I don't want to know this. I didn't want to know this, guys. I did not want to know this. This is not what I wanted to know.
You need those memories extracted.
Yeah.
We know you live in happy world because you're in Hollywood.
But I really am the epitome of I am just really I don't want to know the bad parts, but I also am very responsible. And when I saw what my mom went through, when you see the film, hopefully you will see how egregious and how callous a lot of our system has gotten, to the point where, I got to the point where it was like, and I did not want my mom to die. I was like, what are we doing? Let's kill her. Let's kill her. This is not living. Like, what are we doing, folks?
Do you want to explain what happened?
Sure. I mean, COVID really, like I said earlier, pulled the curtain back, and really, it exaggerated or, exasperated what was happening behind the scenes before, which was the understaffing and the lack of hiring staff, and then the good staff. And when I say good staff, I'm not being judgmental. I'm saying staff that really wants to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And then also educating that staff. So they weren't paying for education, and they're not paying them enough to want to be there. And the vocational CNAs and LVNs and RNs at a lesser extent, are just overworked. They just can't handle the amount. And so it is the norm that people they're abused and neglected because they can't help it. So my mother ended up, going into the hospital without me ever knowing that she even had this with a level 3.5 to 4 pressure wound in her sacrum. It should never get past 1. If you're doing your job, anybody can get a bed sore. But if you're being well cared for, and my mom wasn't bedridden, she was in a wheelchair. You should, that should be nipped in the bud immediately. Getting to a stage 3 or 4, and if you don't know what a bed sore is, like I didn't, I thought it was a bruise. I thought it was like, you lean on your elbow too long and ow, it's red and it hurts. Now these things burrow down to the bone.
Yeah, they're like open wounds.
Open wounds. My mom's got to be this big.
So which about 8 inches? Oh, that's awful.
And that causes sepsis. And that causes dehydration. And then, they're not being hydrated well, and they're not being, fed well, and they're not being turned or moved. And if they're in a wheelchair, they're left and they're incontinent. They're left in their urine or their feces, and there's not enough people. The people that are bedridden, if they have to go to the bathroom, there's not enough people. And you'll hear a CNA go, just go in your bed. I can't deal with you now. And first of all, it's unhealthy. Second of all, can you imagine the indignity of it?
Well, yeah, and it's like just on the flip side of the coin, it's not going to take less time to clean up the person and the bed and their clothing versus getting them out of the bed, which I know for a lot of them require a Hoyer lift and putting them in the wheelchair, then transferring into the toilet. Yeah, that's a lot of physical work, but it's not going to be less work.
No,
and
but
I would
they
think
don't
it's
have
less
the time. They just don't have the time, and that's why people lay in their own excrements for
hours,
8 to 10 hours at a time. You're going to get scabies from that. You're going to get bed sores. You're going to be very, very ill, and you get that, and then you get pneumonia, and then so on and so forth. So when my mom went into the hospital during COVID time, it was it was Omicron. It was last January, and you couldn't get in the hospitals. We couldn't get in the hospitals. That's another problem. That this whole performative regulation during crisis time that a family member couldn't get into a hospital. Why not give us the same PPE that they're giving everybody else? We're as important as anybody else. Anyway, they ended up intubating my mother 3 times.
Oof.
Giving her a G-tube, which she absolutely didn't need, but that made it easier for them. And deeming her NPO, which means nothing by mouth, again, not necessary. Saying that she possibly was aspirating, no, she wasn't. And so on and so on and so on. So by and when she went back to her facility, I kept begging them to take that G-tube out. My mom wanted to eat. That was her life. What else do you have?
Yeah, for real. I love food.
What else do you have? Anyway, it was torture for till she died in July. She had no solid food. And they finally, without a swallow evaluation, just deemed that she was aspirating. And I said, this is a slippery slope if I start the story, because, having a G-tube can cause aspiration far, far more, than having a sip of water or juice or some, soft food without.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. There's nothing healthy about a G-tube. That is your last resort. Nobody needs to be on a G-tube unless you're in a coma and there's a possibility that you're going to come out of it.
They're also very uncomfortable, from what I understand.
They're terrible. They're terrible. She had that on top of a wound that they decided that they weren't going to they'll just keep it clean because she's going to succumb to it. Well, she's going to succumb to it because you're not calling in a wound specialist that she needs. And so would you succumb to it. And so would I. And so would you, Jennifer, if no one took care of it. And by the way, it's not an old person's disease. Any of us can get that if we're laying too long in one spot. So these are the things that are happening because they're dismissing, and they can still bill and get paid for that. So, and by the way, when your loved one, if they're on, Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal, and you go into hospice, that needs to be revamped too, because hospice is basically, it gives them free for all to say, well, we don't need to do anything because they're dying. Let's just keep them comfortable. Well, some people are in hospice for 6 months, a year. That's quality time. And basically they're keeping them sedated until they die. And making they can bill up to $1,500 a day. That's $30,000 a month.
Ooh, that's a lot. So that's in facility hospice.
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. Where
my only hospice experiences have been them coming to the home for my grandparents and for my dad, and to a small extent, my mom. Although again, that was right at the height of what the hell is this COVID thing? So they were better than nothing, but the world was falling apart at that time. So I don't fault them. They didn't do what they said they were going to do to the extent, but they were there and they helped me. So
I'll tell you that whether it was COVID or not, that's the same experience you'd have had.
The one with my dad was good. They were really good because he was a pain in the ass. Yeah. And then I just think the problem with the company that worked for my mom, because they worked closely with the community she lived in, I think it was just, my mom fell and broke her leg March 8th, 2020, and passed away March 31st. So the interim in that 3 weeks was literally we went from, oh, this seems to be a problem in China to holy shit, it's here, to holy crap, what the hell is going on, to lockdowns. Right. Like in 3 weeks, our whole world went upside down, and, there was probably a lot more people needing hospice than it was probably the same thing. Lack of staffing, lack of available people. So they were there. They didn't show up as many days a week as they said they were going to. And they didn't provide as many services, but she also didn't necessarily need them. So, but I couldn't see her for 2 weeks. So it was like, I'm making judgments based on how often I talk to them. Cause I think I saw the hospice nurse twice. I did get to see my mom before she passed away, but not only the day before. It was crazy times. So tell me real quick, I know your shows have a tendency to go longer than mine, and I'm trying to keep mine under an hour.
I get it.
So when did you start filming the documentary?
Well, I started pretty close to after my mom passed away, because I realized I had taken a lot of video, and because I'm a filmmaker, and I just took a lot for posterity, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought I really need to tell this story, and that's my gift is as a storyteller. So let me tell my mom's story, which I thought was poetic, because she went into the hospital on January 17th, 2022, and died on July 17th, 6 months later, 2022. And I thought it was a very big, it was a huge journey for me emotionally, and, educationally as well. And for my mother, it was a very beautiful, albeit torturous journey. But I said to my mom the night before she died, you taught me how to live, and now you're teaching me how to die. And that was the gift that she left me. And, so I want to honor this crap that she went through by paying it forward to everybody. And so I started last year. I have over 75 interviews with experts from every section of this industry, from policymakers, advocates who have been doing this, the most respected in their, voices in this country, as well as caregivers and residents and providers, doctors, everybody, and really telling the story as honestly and as openly as we can. And before you cut me off, we're still raising money. Our fiscal sponsor is the amazing organization, the National Consumer Voice for Quality Long-Term Care. They started in 1975, Ralph Nader, and they've been working at this. So that tells you how long this advocacy has been going on. They are our fiscal sponsor. We are continuing to raise money. We are in the editing phase, which is the hardest, and it is going extremely well. I'm really proud of this project. We do need more funds to finish, and it's all tax deductible. And we are on GoFundMe, and you can go either to our GoFundMe or to the National Consumer Voice has a dedicated page to us, and part of our whatever we raise goes to the National Consumer Voice as well, whether you go to GoFundMe or there directly. And we really appreciate anything, if it's $5, that's great. It's, we just want to get this done before the end of the year, and it's a beast of a job.
Yeah. So is there a better link? The GoFundMe or the other one you said?
National Consumer Voice. I'll provide that for you with all and you can put it in the show notes.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
That's the whole point.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that whichever link we give you or I give out is the one that's going to give you the most money. Because I know GoFundMe takes their fee, which is totally fine.
You are so smart. That is so correct. That is so correct. Well, if whatever's easier for your audience, but yes, you are right. GoFundMe does take takes their little portion and it does dig into it. So if you go directly to the National Consumer Voice, I'll give you both links.
Okay.
You can, more of it will end up in our pockets, and that would be great. So thank you.
You're welcome. And once it's done, how is it going to be distributed, or is that to be determined once you get done?
It is TBD, but we do already have a lot of interest from several distributors who have already, heard of the project and are very interested and find it very worthy. And so we feel very fortunate about that. And we're probably do what I did with my other film is also presented through the festival circuit as well. But it will be widely distributed, and it'll be, a tool for everybody. It'll be an educational tool, really. So, but it's really not going to be dry, you guys. It's a story. It's a love story. It's a love story. And it's not just my love story. There's going to be a lot of love stories in there. So, I'm trying to humanize this and make it really, resonate for everybody. So we're not just talking about data. It's not just data. And I'm not just, and I'm not trying to really, I'm not trying to,
you're not trying to blow up the industry,
well, no, I want to blow up the industry. Don't get me wrong. But, no, I'm not trying to vilify anybody in particular or any, there are really good actors out there and good facilities and really, vocational caregivers that really, really care. And, they are experiencing moral injury because they have to work within this business model. That's not fair to them either.
Nope. The whole thing has to change.
The whole thing has to change. So just know that, this is really about change and movement. That's all. And that's what I want to see happen. And, because just blaming, the blame game doesn't do anything.
Mm-mm. It gets people digging their heels, and it's actually it's counterintuitive to getting change made. Well, this is terrific. I'm sorry your mom had to go through it, but I guess what you said, she taught you how to die, and she gave you this movie to produce for all of us to hopefully make this change. And so I hope people can chip in a couple dollars here and there and get this done, because I think we all need to see it, especially for those of us that plan on living another 46 years.
Right?
Yeah. Hey,
right.
Maybe 48, not 8, 48 if I want to go to 105. Lordy, that seems like a long time.
It does.
But, gotta have goals.
I still got a heck of a lot to do, right?
Yeah, me too. I'm behind, man. Too many places to go, things to see, more things to learn. So this has been terrific.
No,
and
thanks.
I wish you the best of luck on everything. And one of these days, we'll get together. We threatened when I was in Southern California some other time. But we'll manage.
We'll do it.
We're not that far apart.
We're not that far apart, my Cali sister.
Yeah.
Thank you again. Thank you for supporting, and I'll see you on social media like we do.
Yeah, for real. Thanks so much. To the end, and as a bonus, here's what you can expect next Tuesday.
Slowing the aging process is really about maintaining function as we age and staying above what we're referring to in the health industry as the disability threshold. Okay, we want to stay north of the disability threshold for as long as we can. And if we're lucky, we are staying north of that, go to sleep one day and don't wake up. And that's ultimately, everyone's goal in some way, that they don't have to go at the end of life through the detrimental act or the detrimental facts of disability. We're all trying to stay away from that. And fitness training plays a big role. Other healthy lifestyle choices certainly play into it as well. Dietary, rest, socialization, very important part as we're getting older. Exercise is probably leading the way.
Thanks for listening today, and we'll be back in your ears again next Tuesday. Please support our sponsors, for they help us bring the show to you for free.
What makes Contour Next diabetes test strips next level? A few reasons. They're the #1 over-the-counter brand. Next, they give you highly accurate results in seconds.
Bullseye.
Next, they're more affordable than many insurance copays. Next, they're doctor recommended.
All right, thanks, Doc.
And next, they work with all Contour Next meters. Next level diabetes testing, that's over-the-counter Contour Next test strips.
Woohoo!
'Tis the season to shop in-store or online at a retailer near you.
Planning holiday get-togethers means making tough, last-minute decisions, but preparing the perfect meal shouldn't be one of them. So let the Fresh from Florida Club help. Members can browse hundreds of recipes, from sweet corn and sausage stuffing to Florida spiny lobster bisque, each with local, in-season ingredients to create and save holiday menus ahead of time. Visit freshfromflorida.com and join the free Fresh from Florida Club. It could be the easiest decision you'll make all year.